Hey hoopballers, are you into sports betting? Do you want to know why a certain game has a funky line? Well, Hoopball has you covered. Today in Sports Betting is a great addition to all your handicapping questions with hosts Ira Silver and Devin Ellington. We break down game lines and future bets on all sports and try to make some money along the way. Follow us on Twitter at Hoopball Gaming, at Ira Silver Magic, and at DALE007. And download Today in Sports Betting in the App Store, Google Play, and available on Spotify.
The following is a Hoop Ball presentation. Welcome to the Fantasy NBA Today podcast.
Hey, we made it to Friday again, everybody. What's happening? It is Fantasy NBA Today, a Hoop Ball presentation. I'm Dan Vespers. Welcome to the pod. End of another week, and it isn't quite like when we were playing this game in June where we were just counting down the days. Things are fun right now, at least in the basketball landscape. The world is still melting to the ground, but who cares? I kid, of course I care. It's a good distraction. So I realized that even saying that sort of lends credence to the idea that a distraction maybe isn't the greatest thing right now, but listen, there's only so much that a man's brain can handle. You guys watched me. You guys saw my tweets. You guys listen to these shows. It's really nice to have something that allows me to shut the brain off for a little bit. And with basketball, there's a little bit of brain shut off, but there's also plenty of live in-game betting. And, then there's, I'm a big Dodger fan, grew up here in LA, and that was actually the first sports love for me was the Dodgers because it was so much cheaper. The seats in the upper deck were $5. I went with my mom. My dad traveled a lot. My mom took me to Dodger games all the time. We sat in the nosiest of the nosebleeds, or the bleediest of the nosebleeds. I don't know. I'm not sure what the proper modifier on that is. And it was, my mom knew about this sort of relatively secret parking area, so the whole day cost us like $12. It was great. So it's awesome for me to sit back and just watch Dodgers on TV and have these basketball games going. And I'm by the way, Aaron Bruski coming up here in just a matter of moments on the podcast, and a big chat with him about, actually we recorded it yesterday. We recorded it during the Oklahoma City and Houston game, so the two night games had not yet happened yet. Aaron and I made some foolhardy predictions on those games. Which of them came true? I think we were relatively close on the Milwaukee game. I don't think we were even in the remotest vicinity on the Lakers-Blazers game. And then went through the upcoming Friday card. So I think what I'd like to do today, by the way, if you want to follow me on Twitter, I'm at Dan Vespers. Hoopball is hoop-ball.com. That's the website. Hoopball Fantasy is the Twitter feed for all things fantasy sports. Hoopball Tweets is the Twitter handle at Hoopball that sort of encapsulates everything under the umbrella. So that has the team feeds, the gambling feeds, all that good stuff all rolled together. So definitely go do check that out. And if you have a moment, please drop a 5-star review on this podcast or any of our Hoopball podcasts. Go check out DFS Today or Today in Sports Betting. Those shows are incredible. They're running daily right now. If you want your DFS and gaming information, opportunities to make money, even while full season fantasy is not in full effect. But what I'd like to do is jump ahead to an interview that I did with Brew yesterday at about 3 in the afternoon Pacific time. Again, we break down the last two games from last night before they happen, trying to make guesses on how they play out, and then preview the Friday card. And then what we'll do is after the chat with Brew, we'll go back. I'll talk a bit about what I saw on Thursday night and during the day, I guess, in some of these games that have already taken place. So let's just leap right on in. If I keep doing it this often, you can't say I'm dodging you anymore. I mean, you can, but it wouldn't carry as much weight. Brew, what's up, my man?
Dude, I got that. Is it Adina Menzel? Is that the name?
The commercial? Are you going to do the Geico commercial?
I might.
Following the dreams
of a taxidermy.
It doesn't make sense, though. It doesn't make sense. How could she read it wrong?
I read that wrong. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense. One doesn't look anything like the other.
Yeah,
they sound
they
similar.
Didn't really stress test that commercial very much.
No,
but
it's
I was sitting there rocking Skylar to sleep, which I also learned. I finally read the chapter in the book that says don't do this.
Yeah.
But I was sitting there and I'm like, okay, we're not going to start this sleep training for a couple more weeks, so I'll just do a little rock. I've been doing little rocks, and that song, no joke, couldn't get it out of my head, Dan. Almost had a moment.
You're singing the Idina Menzel Geico commercial song to Sky while you're rocking to sleep.
Over and over again right now. So it's on right before we came on the show. I think my life is this kind of crazy joke right now. between the smoke in the air, the heat wave, COVID.
Yeah. Lest we forget the COVID that's still hanging over all of us. Although slight improvements, right? Can I feel? No, I'm not even going to get into cautious optimism. We need to see this thing all the way to its conclusion. No, yeah, everything is utter silliness right now. We got NBA playoffs in a bubble because of all of the above.
Great.
The playoffs have been fun. So first of all, this is Aaron Bruski. I know I just called you Brew, but I feel like most people listening probably know who I'm talking to by now. Aaron on Twitter, of course, is at Aaron Bruski. Bruski is the last name. He is the founder of hoop-ball.com or hoop ball. Have we decided if there's a space between hoop and ball when we say just hoop ball?
It's very controversial, Dan.
Yeah, I know. Polarizing topics once again here on the pod. So you're enjoying bubble playoffs, though. It is a nice reprieve.
Honestly, it might be the best basketball I've. Maybe not like certain aspects of it aren't the highest quality, but like just pure entertainment factor. I can't recall a time where there was this much going on, and like the Dame Lillard stuff alone is mind blowing. Really, the last time I think my mind was blown like this, as far as the game changing, was when Steph was doing it.
Yeah, completely agree. And those are the two guys. And, of course, that's why ESPN had to go hard on the Dame versus Steph discussion. Like, that needed to really make its way into what we're talking about right now.
Props to whoever names their show Go Hard.
Hashtag Go Hard at ESPN. So here, I'm thinking about all of the stuff going on, and I want to know if the reason you're feeling this way is at all similar to the reason I'm feeling this way. And for me, yes, it's sort of tangentially related to COVID. Yeah, we didn't have basketball for a long time because of it, and so getting something back was always going to be fun. But for me, it was actually the distance from a real fantasy season that's made me so excited about the playoffs. Normally, the NBA playoffs start right after the most intense couple weeks of fantasy play where you're trying to wrap up something down the stretch. You're just going crazy. And then usually I'm like, all right, I need a reprieve right now. But I don't need a reprieve. I'm actually really excited to watch playoff games, and they've been fun.
It's been weird. I know that's hella descriptive. It's been weird. And it most certainly has been weird. They're in a damn bubble. And
a working
I just
bubble,
figured out, I think those signs around the court are actually real. The LED or whatever screens that are around the court.
Yeah.
Like, I kind of wondered if they were superimposed by cameras. They seem real.
Some of the stuff
on
the
court
court
for somebody
is,
to
right?
chuck a pass into one of those things
so you
and
can
have
see
it
what's
just
up.
like explode.
Like when when a wild one gets loose in a baseball game where the backdrop is a green screen. Is that what you're talking about?
Well, the thing I think I saw a soccer game in like Mexico, and there was very clearly there was digital technology putting, the covering over the empty stadium. So that's kind of what I thought that was going to be. But then really important stuff here. I realized, no, those are real. And, so it's weird basketball. And, when you play in scrimmages, for practice, they'll bring refs in and, it's still real basketball, but there's almost always an up-tempo element to those games. The defense is just not there. Everybody's playing a little bit looser. And so, I mean, it's been a little bit like that. I don't have the pace numbers up in front of me or anything, but I would probably guess that the pace has been up compared to the regular season, though that changes when you get into the first few games. the playoffs as teams tighten up and get to know each other in the series. But it's just been fun up-tempo basketball. It's been, I mean, the Lillard stuff is crazy to me because, like, he kind of felt like that there was not much that could be done to change the game again outside of a rule change. And he goes out there, and he's clearly been practicing these shots a lot. And we're talking not just, like, set shots from 30-plus feet. He's doing hanging jumpers.
Yeah, like coming around a screen and firing on a drop coverage, right? Like he sees a defender at the 3-point line, and he goes, "Oh, all right, I'll just leave 7 feet of space. I'll shoot from here."
Yeah, it's really wild because once you establish that you can make that shot, and if you're making it he's been making it at a 40% clip, so it's a clearly good shot for him.
That's my clip on unguarded layups.
I think I'd be lucky to hit that.
Unguarded, very important.
Yeah, no, I mean, it just depends. Like, are we talking like left-handed layups? Because
no, whatever layup you want.
I can still make my righty layups.
I know you can. You're a taller and more athletic person than I am. I'm talking about me. I think you uncontested layups. You got to be at least over a 50% proposition.
Let's take those bets, folks. MyBookie.ag.
Yeah, there you go. We'll get that ad in there. Hoopball is the promo code. You cannot, however, bet on Aaron hitting 50 or more out of 100 unguarded layups. Yeah, but no, you're right, though. Like, Dame is doing something that's changing the way teams have to play defense. Although, you know, it does seem like it's a relatively quick adjustment, right? And the hope there is that then the people around him can space the floor enough to where then there's a ton of room. It's not,
and they clearly can. I mean, you got Gary Trent. He's probably on a cold streak right now, but he's perfectly capable. Melo's perfectly capable. CJ is perfectly capable. And you know what? I think Nurk can probably stick a three, you know, if you absolutely asked him to in the corner. So, I mean, they got people to do this. And when the Blazers were going through all the seeding games and all those games were important, they were the teams were giving up the corner three to trap him. And so I remember he rised and fired on one it was a bad shot. And I remember thinking it's actually smart because you're basically telling the other team, I'm going to keep doing this, so keep coming out and doubling me. It was Brooklyn. It was coming out, and they were running like a Randy Moss coverage from back in his Marshall days where they'd have a guy up front and then a guy right behind him that basically, like, you know, gets the second wave of coverage. And so he takes that bad shot, and then next time, same coverage, comes down and gets another corner three that they make. And so he's got to keep them out there 30 feet away doing these double teams, because that's easy money. I mean, if you get that many corner threes, but there's a better defense than that, and it's more or less you got to either trap him or just straight switch.
I was reading an article because it was this exact topic was so interesting to all of us, I think, that have watched a ton of NBA. And I think it was Alex Regla. I don't know if you follow him. He does a bunch of Laker coverage on Twitter. Had an article about, he had a piece on the Lakers missing all their open shots. We'll talk about that in a minute. And then I think the site he works for, and I can't remember who put the piece out, had an article on the hard hedge being perhaps the best possible coverage of the Dame pick and roll. But that's about as far as my knowledge of it goes, is assuming there you cut him off, and then you're going to have to recover quickly, but you're not letting Dame do the damage there.
I'd just straight switch, and here's why. I'm not that terrified of him as a driver. I mean, he'll make his plays, and he'll break down a big, you know, pretty easily, but that gets them out of this, this red-hot, unconscious zone. And, yeah, you do have to come up on your switch, you know, and it is, in effect, a hard hedge, but, you know, you're not retreating at that point, and you're just passing the coverage off, and you live with the mismatches.
Well, you know that's what Houston would do, since they switch everything for everyone.
Yeah. So, I mean, you're seeing this with him. You're seeing it with James Harden, and that game's going on right now. I have not been able to be as dialed into that as I would like. So I'll probably rewatch that later. But, you know, you can't just let somebody dictate tempo. This is happening actually with the Jazz as well. Donovan Mitchell's getting all the way downhill. You got to show him a different look, and figure out somebody else has got to beat you there. The Lakers are a mess. I don't know if they're on the docket to really get into in this show. Are they playing tonight?
They're playing tonight, yeah. So we're recording this podcast halfway through the Thunder Rockets game on Thursday. This will be airing first thing Friday morning, so you guys can laugh at whatever our predictions are for the games coming up here while we're recording. But I do think we need to talk about the Lakers because the story there is they had 16 wide open threes out of their 32. Half of their three-pointers were literally uncontested. They made 2 of them. What happened? I mean, I know this team wasn't a good shooting team in the regular season, but what were they? I think they were 35% from downtown. How do you go 13% on wide open threes? Will they ever remember how to make a shot?
It's confidence.
Yeah.
But there's something about, I'll give you an example, like player struggling all game, wide open shots, bricking, missing him badly, kind of a, let's go, inconsistent shooter, and they're in their own head, and next time down they get sort of the perfect pass off of some other action, their feet are set, but the defender is right on them. But because the play was crisp and the window is tight and everybody in the building knows it's your time to shoot that shot, and if you passed it you'd get benched, somebody rises and fires in that circumstance with a ton of confidence. And so what I've seen out of the Lakers is LeBron's running a crap offense. I mean, I don't care what the guys are not hitting around him. The way he's initiating, the shot selection, it's so bad. And what happens is your team feels that. They then kind of, instead of being aggressive and confident and having the other team on their heels, they're also pressing. Their timing is just a little bit off. And really, that was the story of that entire game. I also thought Anthony Davis was bad.
Oh, yeah.
No question. They're just...
Has been the whole bubble, by the way.
I don't think... I think LeBron is going to come out in this game and have a real good physical game. Like, there'll be effort. There'll be quickness. He'll use his body more. He'll clean up his shot selection. Like, I think he does not want to go down 2-0 here. And so you'll get that out of him. My question with Anthony Davis is, physically, his body, he's not that, I mean, he's very athletic, but he's not the guy he once was. So when people were talking defensive player of the year and all that stuff, I'm just kind of rolling my eyes and going, no, he can't get off the ground anymore. He's not quick into whatever he's trying to do. And so now back to your point from Twitter, when nobody's hitting shots and everything's looking bad and nothing's working and he's floating around the perimeter, he can't really get that separation, the spacing that he needs to start bringing out the kind of the Swiss Army knife game that he should be playing. And then he reverts to this fadeaway long two.
The long twos.
You can appreciate the 3-pointers, but it's still like, man, it's such a win for Portland that he's not terrorizing the inside of the paint. And no, I'm not saying he's got to play back to the basket, but he's got to be in there cutting and using his gifts and putting the defense on their heels, because then that opens everything else up.
Could he and LeBron run anything farther from the basket, or does that not change?
Was that Jack Winter?
I think
who made that comment?
Yeah, I was working off of something that was retweeted from a hoopball account.
Well, great Jack Winter,
of course.
Who, he's got a few different things going on. Wrote for us last year, and maybe one day again. He had a great little set of tweets about where these screens are set, and that's what I was talking about, the sloppiness of this offense. I mean, there are a couple shots LeBron took where I just almost wanted to turn off the game. I mean, I did have the Lakers for my game 1 pick, but it was just if you guys aren't going to try, why are we even going to why are we going to sit here and watch?
No, well, they should have been winning that game by 6 or 7 points at halftime, at least. But there was a stretch in that second quarter where Portland didn't have a field goal for, I think it was 5 or 6 minutes. They had 9 points at the free throw line, and it was a tie ball game. And you're going, well, this is Like this
Well, it was also,
this isn't going to work. You're not going to win a game.
Classic game one stuff. Like teams like to go out in game one and be like, "We're going to be us. We're not making any changes, but we're more than willing to pay a loss in order to do that." Like you got JaVale McGee out there who looks
why? What is he doing out there in this series?
Iffy at best. I mean, sometimes he makes some plays for you, and you can see why and where he's useful. Dwight Howard, same thing. So like you're letting the Blazers get two guys in their top, say 7 or 8 in Whiteside and Nurkic. You're letting them have that matchup flexibility.
By the way, I actually I didn't mind Dwight, just to jump in. I thought Dwight was okay.
He had a decent game.
JaVale I could have done without. I could have done without JaVale McGee. I know he had 8 rebounds and a block and whatever, but there's the JaVale Nurk matchup feels like a mistake.
Well, you're just letting the Blazers off the hook in so many ways. Like you want to make them have to downsize. So now they dig deeper into their rotation into the Mario Hezonja, Wenyen Gabriel minutes. By the way, Wenyen Gabriel's not bad. But you got to get Mario Hezonja on the floor. Holy crap. I mean, that guy's like the worst decision maker in the history of the NBA. And you got to get him on the floor. But it was a classic game one in that the Lakers lollygagged their way through the bubble or through the seeding games. Portland on the cutting edge, fighting for their life. Of course, they're going to come in firing. You just expected the Lakers to not be that bad.
Yeah, they were truly horrible. Truly horrible, particularly on offense. Because I actually thought the Lakers' defense wasn't half bad in this ballgame. I thought Alex Caruso played some pretty good D. LeBron, this is like LeBron caring. Anthony Davis, his defense is always fine. They held Portland to 39%. That's a game the Lakers should win. So what do we think is happening tonight? Since we're recording this early,
I'm staying away from it.
Yeah, me too.
First of all, I hit my first cold patch right in the beginning of the playoffs, which kind of is like, hey, there were so many plays that I shouldn't have made. Like,
I think anyone who's ever bet on anything has said that sentence.
But it's so true for me. Like, and I get sucked into the playoffs. Like, I want to try to like not help everybody, but I just want to have a take on everything. And so I totally blew it with a couple. And then I didn't play the ones that my gut was telling me to play. So I talked myself out of some good plays and ran with a bunch of stuff that like I really like told myself, don't bet on OKC. I said that to myself 10 times, and then they made it a pick 'em, and I was like, okay, you got me.
They hooked you. Hook, line, and sinker.
And then, I mean, you look at what they did in their first game, and I'm like, oh, wait, I forgot that Chris Paul chokes in the playoffs and that Billy Donovan can't coach. Which, by the way, hat tip to everybody that made him a Coach of the Year finalist.
Well, the thing that bugged me about this matchup, and I haven't really looked at how the regular season went, but the Rockets switch everything. The Thunder don't have a big man that can really punish. I know Steven Adams is a big human being, but he's not a skilled offensive player. So there's nothing the Rockets are going to do defensively that's going to open something up for the Thunder. This is a series where if Houston makes any of their threes, they win.
Rob, you're probably right with that. Rob Mahoney had a great article on this where you have to attack them side to side. Like, you can't just think you're going to beat them because you're bigger, because they're strong.
Yeah.
You know?
And pick and roll doesn't
strong,
work.
Tucker's strong, and you got to get them off their foundation. And, I mean, watching the Thunder walk up the court and literally one, not even an action, and then a one-on-one move multiple times are just like a simple pick and roll with everybody else standing on the perimeter and nobody really respecting their outside shooting. It just was like, did you guys even like talk about this?
No, they're in real they're in real trouble, and I don't know what's going to happen in the fourth quarter of this game that's on while we're recording, but as it is right now, the Thunder are up a bucket while out shooting the Rockets by 12%. You should be leading by a few more than 2 if you're winning the field goal percent battle by 12%. So, I mean, I don't know. Does Houston make a few more shots in the fourth quarter? They might just shoot the ball horribly the whole game, and the Thunder might get it. But all the Rockets have to do to win a game in this series is come close to matching the Thunder from the field, because, again, there's there isn't a whole lot that OKC can do offensively with their particular set of weapons. It's a bad matchup for them. All right, quickly here, we'll do the night take so we can laugh at it on when I build the rest of the pod out tomorrow morning. Orlando, Milwaukee bounce back game. Do they cover the 13?
I'm not playing it.
I wouldn't
I
dare
actually
either.
That was one of the ones that I kicked myself for not taking. Should have done it.
The DJ Augustine game. We always got to play the DJ Augustine game. I forgot too.
I think like people thought Aaron Gordon's out, like, oh wow, this is just the end of the Magic. No, the Magic might be better without Aaron Gordon.
It's possible. It's possible. It's a lot of Vooch, and that's a good thing for them. And then Portland Lakers. I think
If
Portland
I had to
covers
pick
it
tonight.
Yeah.
I'd rather freaking flip a coin on the over under. I don't like it's. I honestly have no idea in this game.
I think Portland
None.
actually goes up 2-0, and this is despite being a Laker fan.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, the Lakers look completely out of sorts on offense. They have the entire bubble. They haven't played one complete game since they've been in Orlando.
I think we're also finding out that LeBron, he has to put his shoulder down and get to the rim. Like, he can't do this dancing around the perimeter thing because his jump shot's just not that dangerous, and he's not getting any separation, and the defenses aren't really respecting him as an elite playmaker. And the only way he can be an elite playmaker now is to just muscle his way to the basket and play it'll be an ugly floor game, but it would be an ugly but effective floor game. You start getting into, people and start making them get some foul trouble. It just changes everything. So this is a LeBron game, and that's why I'm tempted to take LA, because LeBron has shown enough to know to where I know he has that in him.
Well, of course. Think about the last 3 games they played before the shutdown. The Lakers beat Philly, Milwaukee, and the Clippers, and then the league shut down, and now the Lakers look like the 9th best team in the West. They looked like the best team in the league on March 11th.
I'm not going to say that.
They beat the Bucks and the Clippers pretty handily.
I don't care about, what was it, March? I
Yeah.
can't remember.
I'm talking about March. That's what I said. When the league shut down, they were the best team in the league.
I'll take your word for it.
Yeah, I was excited because
I've never bought the Lakers this year. I've been on the Clippers all year. I will definitely take the Raptors if somehow the Lakers make it and the Raptors make it. I'll take the Raptors.
Yeah, I don't think
I'll
the
bet
Lakers,
a lot on it.
I don't think the Lakers are making the finals. I don't know. Maybe someone on that team will figure out how to shoot.
Dallas giving the Clippers hell. Oh, by the way, I don't think that's gonna keep up tonight, but
That's true. That is Friday. Yeah, it's confusing when we're talking about games like this. All right, let's do the lines on Friday.
Friday.
Friday's lines. Toronto,
what are
Brooklyn.
days of the week, Dan?
I know it doesn't matter. It's 100.
But that's actually I want to get this point in, and it's not that important, but I think one of the coolest things about this, and the NBA's got a lot to pick from that they can bring back for future years. But I just love this. Like, it feels like March Madness a little bit, but without the elimination aspect of it. You get up in the morning, there's a game, then there's another game, and there's another game, and there's another game. It's just been so much fun.
Yeah. I love the games that start first thing in the morning. Oh, it's beautiful.
It's just been all day, every day, pure basketball with great basketball going on. So the last 3 weeks have been, I almost forgot about all that other stuff. Not really.
Yeah, no. I left the long pause in there. Toronto, Brooklyn is the first game on Friday morning.
Gimme. I wonder what that line moved to, because, once Joe left, Harris, that is, once he left and you knew that he couldn't come back for 2 games, then I was just like, why is this line where it's at?
Toronto by 10.5, total of 220.5.
I'm not looking at over-unders for us today.
That's fair. No, that's fine. I don't care. Give me it. Do you like the side?
Doing it.
Because you and I both had strong takes on that second game, and we all wimped out. I really liked the under in Game 2, and I wimped out. And you really liked Brooklyn in Game 2, and you wimped out. And we left money on the table. And then what happens, of course, in those moments is you're like, I wimped out on this one. I better play the next one. And then you start chasing. And that's why it's good to kind of take a deep breath. This is a weird series, though. Toronto took their foot off the gas in that second game. They didn't hit 32 out of 33 free throws. I don't have a great feel for Game 3 here. I know you said no Joe Harris. That's tough for Brooklyn. Is Toronto taking them seriously?
It just brings another, like, not very good player into 30 minutes.
Yeah, true.
I mean, that's at the end of the day, they just didn't have that room for error to lose one more guy. And so that's going to just be, that's going to be what it is. And Toronto's got so much depth. Not that matters because they're not really playing a ton of their depth. But, I just, whether, like, so the bench, what you're going to see is Toronto can beat them with their starting lineup, but then the bench is where it's going to get ugly. And, so, yeah, no, I feel really good about this one. I also love the fact that they didn't play well last game. Just try to clear that from their system, not build up bad habits, maybe get some additional rest, which is a little bit bigger deal in the playoffs this year. Also, on that note, since we're bringing up weirdness of these playoffs, I just am curious to hear other people talk about the fact that we don't have home and away.
Yeah, I was just about to bring that up. It's really strange because after the 2 games, my brain is like, oh, well, now it goes back to Brooklyn, so maybe they'll get a little energy, and you're like, no.
Yeah, there's nothing scrambling anything up. So it's like this Heat, the Heat to me have been my happy place in these playoffs because I'm like, their second to last matchup in the seeding games, you had everybody's main guys going, and I just watched them beat up on Indy. And it's so clear to me that Miami's better than Indy. So they go out and they win, and then the line is the same exact thing the next game. And it's like the odds makers are like, well, we don't really have much to change here. Sure, like, okay, we can adjust it a couple points. Like Houston was -2.5 after they walloped the Thunder. That they're not moving the lines much.
No. I mean, well, they have power rankings, and they're going to sort of stick with them. Individual game results be damned effectively at this point, and with no home court, they don't have to move it.
Favors us as bettors.
It's pretty weird though, because my brain is very used to the team goes back to another location, home team up 2-0 is like, all right, well, we'll just get 1 out of 2 here, and then we'll wrap it up on our place. There's a mental element where teams have to bring intense focus every single game. There's no advantage for home court anymore, which I thought was kind of weird. I almost felt like they should have built something in.
My idea, which I think I tweeted about, is give the home team all their timeouts and give the away team 1 less timeout.
Yeah, something as simple as that would have been hard for an away team to argue against, right? They should have some disadvantage for sucking for 4.5 months, right?
There's one other concept here that kind of builds off of this that I think is just really interesting. And I think it's the variance and the oddness of the bubble. Like, that to me almost always favors underdogs, which is why I'm also a little bit pissed about my start, because I did take a lot of chalk. And it's just like something I know, like, you're going to see game ones where the underdog comes out firing and the favorite is not that urgent. And it's like a every year thing. And I went against that.
Weren't you like, the Lakers at least looked like they cared, even if they played an ugly game? I was surprised at how little it looked like Milwaukee cared in game 1. They were completely disengaged for the full 48 minutes.
It makes you wonder that, like, players all know things before media, like, is there a chance that Giannis is like, I don't think I'm here long term? And I'm not trying to start rumors, and I don't think I will.
Hashtag rumor start.
Right. But I mean, if you see that continue in the playoffs, you kind of, it's like Philly right now. I'm stupid. And this was why I was taking too many plays, is like Gordon Hayward's injury should have put Boston in a really bad spot. They also suffer from depth issues. He's been so good for them, and I know injured star theory and all that, but like, it just, if you were just mildly competent, if you're Philly, you should be able to beat the spread. And they weren't able to, because they know that Brett Brown is dead.
Yeah, that's sad.
I think they all know that this organization is like dead. Like, you can't make Joel Embiid your number 1 player. You can't. He's too lazy. Bottom line, like, he's too lazy. He makes bad decisions. He refuses to put himself in a position to be the best player he can be. Everybody knows it. Like Stan Van Gundy, if he was calling a game, he would just look at Joel Embiid and be like, no, I can't do that. And so when your leader is like that and the other leader, Ben Simmons, is not a leader and is also not there, and you've got all these big money contracts that are not going to, I mean, Al Horford, he looks out of shape. And a lot of it might just be because he doesn't care right now. Like he was brought in and sold kind of a bill of goods. And now it's like, well, we can't really do that. So, I mean, they just look like none of them. It's not that they don't care, but that they just don't have any confidence. They don't really make the extra effort.
It's funny you say that. I'm going to jump ahead to that game. That's the third one on the docket. Philly's catching 5 after getting fully embarrassed in game 2. I'm actually tempted to take Philly in 5. Like, this is their last stand for their pride.
Yes, that's what I thought yesterday.
Yeah. Yesterday I was confused because I was like, I don't know. I think Boston just more Marcus Smart. I think they'll probably be all right. I didn't expect them to wallop them. I figured it was going to be a decent game. Philly was probably going to hang in there. I didn't touch it. And now this one, they're in the crosshairs.
Honestly, if you told me Embiid wasn't playing, I would be
all over them, right?
I would be more, spread aside, like odds of winning the game.
Better
Without Joel Embiid. You can't play drop coverage from underneath the hoop. I'm sorry. The only other player I've seen do that is Demarcus Cousins.
Who you love, by the way.
They both have the same attitude. Is like, I'll play when I feel like it.
Yeah, that's not great. And he had those dejected looks on his face of a guy that feels like he should be getting more help, and maybe he should, but you can't. You can't do that.
He's taken fadeaway 18-footers like off of like 3-5 dribbles. Like, it's just when your teammate does that, you don't want to play.
Yeah,
it's such a bad shot. It's such a waste of your talent. It just kills everybody, and so I don't see that changing for Embiid. The only thing that could cause that bet to hit in my mind is if Embiid's like, I'm going to the block. I'll get like 2 offensive fouls. I don't care. Whoever's covering me is gonna hurt tomorrow.
Just start mauling people. I think that's what's coming in this one. I think it's one big one. Yeah, he did stuff. I don't go to many basketball games because, frankly, they're expensive. They are. Well, they were when we used to be able to go to them. But I went to a Lakers-Sixers game a couple years ago. It was a game where Embiid just went completely nuts. I think he put up 40 and 17 or something crazy like that. And he was doing things in the post that I have not seen before. And everybody's like, well, Akeem did that. And I'm like, yeah, that's fine, but I was a little kid. I don't remember like the actual visual of that happening, and I didn't go to many games when I was a kid either.
He was fouling teams out.
Yeah. It was
down there.
And it was incredible. He was moving like someone who was like 4'8" and he's 7 feet tall. Just spins and up and under and all these things where he was past people because he was so fast. And he's 7 feet 260 or something like that. He's a giant dude. But
they all want to play the face-up game. They all want to play Euro step ball. There's.
By the way, Houston. Yeah, I know. We called this 7 minutes ago on the pod. You heard it, everybody.
Man, I love, and another thing I love about this bubble is the teams on the bench.
Yeah, it's so funny.
They got it. I mean, screw the rich people. I would like some aspect of this, elaborate bench celebration. Like, give them a stage, man. Have them drop from the rafters when it's their time to play.
Let's come down like Apollo.
I don't care. I'm all for it.
Apollo Creed style. Just living in America, coming blasting over the loudspeakers as the teams drop down in their patriotic boxing shorts. What about Denver, Utah? I mean, I've gotten a lot of stuff wrong, but I have said repeatedly that Denver is not guarding anyone and it's going to bite them, and then it bit them. Finally, it bit them. Will they learn how to guard someone for this game, or is this just coin flip city this whole series?
I was so bullish on Denver, and I got lucky. Well, here's the thing. I didn't get lucky in game 1. Like, Denver had control of that game for most of the game, and then Utah caught fire. A lot of this comes back to Donovan Mitchell, and they're not giving any different looks to Mitchell at all. And, you can pin it on Jokic, you can pin it on Murray, you can pin it on Millsap. I mean, the list of guys who are not fast enough to do this it's pretty long, and you're really seeing them miss Will Barton and Gary Harris. Say what you want about those guys, but they would be able to just get in the way at a minimum.
Yeah, anything at all.
And Utah doesn't have anything beyond Donovan Mitchell. That's the other thing. I mean, Smoking Joe, friend of the show, won us a lot of money here. He can't take them to the promised land in this series. Donovan can, because dude is unstoppable in many ways. Like, the elevation he gets on that jumper is just, it might be the best in the league as far as the pure height that his feet are off the ground as he's shooting these things. So Denver's going to have to do something, and I don't know if they've got the personnel. I mean, Torrey Craig, I think, is an option. You could put a lot of size on Mitchell. You go Torrey Craig, Jeremy Grant. Unfortunately for the Nuggets, Mitchell gets to step on both those guys. So I don't know that that's an option. But what you have to do is improve your team defense overall. So you're probably going to have to go away from guys that are more offensive players and then give more minutes to your defensive guys in an aggregate sense. So, you're going to play a little bit more Mason Plumlee. You might actually, and it's funny because this never works, but play Plumlee and Jokic together for 5 minutes. Buy some time for guys that are going to get their arms in passing lanes, that are going to be defensively focused. Come up with a scheme that's going to take the ball out of Mitchell's hands. I mean, trap, it's easier said than done with a guy like that, but just get the ball out of his hands, because he's the only thing that can make them play downhill. Nobody else is going to make them play downhill. And you've got one game to figure it out now before Conley gets back, because he does actually have the ability to beat people off the dribble. And that's your second option right there. So I'm a little confounded at the way that the Nuggets have come out, because I felt like in a pure chess match sense that they could eliminate Mitchell, or not eliminate, but slow him down and make somebody else the guy. And they just haven't done it. So you're also seeing bad Denver stuff. Jokic just getting, down because of a play or a call, putting his head down, that resulting in him not being where he's supposed to be. That kind of stuff, it eats at the tempo of your team. So at the same time, though, Utah's not going to hit whatever 90% of their shots they've been hitting.
Well, they will if it's a Rudy Gobert blow by. I couldn't believe it when Gobert went right by Jokic. I'm like, if Jokic can't stay in front of this dude, please. There's just so all right. Wait a minute. I gotta pull it back into focus here. I don't have a play on this game. 1.5 is the line. Denver by 1.5. Total.
That's the only game I don't have a play on tomorrow, and I'm very tempted. I'm just waiting to hear what Denver does. Do they telegraph a move that makes things better? Michael Porter Jr. scoring. I don't know if he's going to be a guy that you can keep relying on in the capacity that they have been, because he's not adding anything on defense. But what is the next move that they make? I think it's more defensive players on the floor and live with the offense that you have out of Jokic and Murray.
Yeah. I agree. I agree.
So if I hear a move, I'm very happy to take Denver. I think that they showed in game one that they can be better than the Jazz. They just got to cover up, Spider Mitchell. So I just want to hear one coverage idea. Give me one coverage idea, Mr. Michael Malone.
Not yet.
Who I have a lot of faith in as a coach.
Clippers favored by 5 over Dallas. This one's coming down for the first time. Clippers have been, I think, 6-point favorites in each of the first two games.
I got them at 4.5.
Oh, that's even. So that's come down even a little from the opener of 5. Total of 232.5. Dallas beat them, and Dallas didn't actually play that great in their win. They were good, but I didn't feel like they were great. Clippers got a big one out of Kawhi Leonard and very little out of Paul George. There's, I don't know, man. I had the Clippers. I have a futures wager on the Clippers, and that game made me a little bit nervous. Do they need Pat Beverly that much to wake them up?
I'm not a big Pat Beverly guy anymore. Like I don't think he's an elite defender anymore. I mean, I think he's an intangibles guy. He's probably an average to maybe a little bit above average defender. But his the ingredient he brings will certainly help that team. I think that they're hurting from like Montrezl Harrell not having, his wind, not being in the game, and having to make those adjustments within the rotation. They just looked out of sorts. Dallas is getting really good minutes from some key guys like Seth Curry right now. You just look at that and it goes classic Dallas, right? You're going to get guys that are, been cast away from other teams and they're going to play very well. You got Porzingis in there doing his thing. He presents an interesting challenge for them. But what I come back to with this series is the Clippers have like, I don't know, 3-4 guys that they can throw at Doncic. And theoretically, like, I think you can defend Doncic straight up with Kawhi. I think you can defend Doncic straight up with Paul George. And from there, I think that there's enough length and defensive play on that team to really not be as concerned about him as, there are a lot of teams that have zero answers for Doncic. Like, there's not a player on the roster that has a chance against him. And the Clippers just happen to have, two of the premier wing defenders in the league. So Paul George, and he had ice on his shoulder afterwards. You don't know how much that's playing a role, but he's just got to get aggressive and focus on defense is always a great thing for a team. Like if you're down, focus on defense, get your stops, get out of the open court. They weren't doing any of that, in the aggregate. So I do think that they don't want to go down 2-1. And when you have those answers for Doncic, like to me, this one's just like a neon light. I am all about this game. If you told me a month ago that I would get the Clippers -4.5 at a neutral court against the Mavs, I'd probably back up my truck and just dump money into the bet.
So then if you think the Clippers are that effective, I know you said you weren't going to talk totals, but would that give you a slight lean to the under, thinking that they're holding Luka in check?
What's the number?
232.5. Last game's total was 241 with, I should add though, 76 combined free throws in the last ball game. It was a little heavy on the foul line.
Yeah, man, I just watched the refs in the Indy-Miami game totally had an impact on it, and I'm not as much of a degenerate. I'm like a learning degenerate. I don't do the ref stats right now. I need to.
Well, they sort of change it. There's sometimes it's sort of ref dependent and ref independent. I think that they're calling the series a certain way. They're not giving James Harden that many free throws in this series, by the way, and Houston is still somehow winning despite not doing anything offensively in this game.
Another thing I like about the bubble, they don't care about their clothes. Like Russ is wearing a sleeveless Iron Maiden shirt right now,
yeah.
running around screaming like a maniac.
Well,
so
didn't
cool.
KD tweet normalize coaches in polos or something like that? That was a great tweet.
Yeah. Oh, and Russ has got a green hat on too. I don't know what kind of hat. He just, he looks like he's a truck driver or something.
Well, for the next couple of games, he might be. They might not need him in this series. All right.
Well, real quick on that. I almost wonder if they shouldn't bring him back because they have the ingredients right now. They don't need to make any changes. I'm so embarrassed that I took the Thunder, forgetting about Chris Paul's playoff inconsistency and the Billy Donovan factor. It's just mind blowing. Anyway, what else we got?
That's it. Those are the games. That's the Friday card. He's Aaron Bruski, the man.
I love the Friday card.
Yeah, it's a fun one. We'll be tracking it. Fear not, everyone. We don't miss too much because Lord knows.
Yeah, you want to start following me on my bookie because I just lost a bunch.
Well, you can fade right now and go back to following.
I told you guys to fade me because I was like 23-10 or something. Like,
yeah,
can't keep that up forever.
No, you can't. Unfortunately, no one can.
So I've done my losing. Get on there and follow me.
Aaron Bruski, AARON BRUSKI, the Twitter handle. Follow Aaron on Twitter. Follow his plays over at mybookie.ag. Promo code is HoopBall. You can unlock your deposit match Or I don't care. Do whatever promo you want as long as you're following along, bet some games, do some in-game stuff. If we weren't recording this podcast right now, I had in the middle of one of our chats selected Rockets when OKC was up like 3 in the third quarter. It was a pick'em, the in-game line, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna dump like $50 on the Rockets.
You're gonna become the world's preeminent in-game middler.
I love it, and this one wasn't even a middling. I was just like, yeah, the Rockets at some point in this game, they're not going to shoot 34%, and it's going to get ugly. But we were doing a pod, so I'll do the next one. Honestly, tonight, I think Philly is the way I'm going. I believe that there is enough pride in that chamber to do something, and maybe it's Horford that does it.
Do they?
Friday night, I should say. Friday.
Oh. Yeah, okay.
Podcast tonight. It's like stage left versus real left. Podcast tonight versus real tonight. Brew, we'll do it again in 2 weeks. Are we on an every other right now?
I think so.
Hell yeah. The big dog is back in town. Yeah, he's Aaron Bruski. I'll talk to him in 2 weeks. Later, dude.
Peace.
My boss. Good man. The founder of Hoopball, Aaron Bruski. At Aaron Bruski on Twitter if you want to give him a follow. Let's segue now. We did plenty of chatter about MyBookie, but just in case you guys forgot, mybookie.ag is the website for all of our gambling information and wagering needs. MyBookie Bet on Twitter. Use promo code HOOPBALL when you sign up for an account. Minimum deposit $45. You can get a 100% deposit match if you use that promo code, which is also sweet. It unlocks various promotions. You can use other ones if you want. Just make sure you use the code so they know who sent you. And follow at HoopBall Gaming on Twitter for our Hoopball betting information. That's where all of our pros come together for their betting picks and thoughts on games as they're coming out and things of that nature. Ira, Devin, Troy, myself, Brew, we're all chipping in over in that direction. So here's what happened on Thursday. Miami beat Indiana. We talked a little bit about that during the chat with Brew. I thought Indy would play better with Oladipo back, and ultimately they played almost exactly the same. The big difference in this ballgame, of course, Duncan Robinson got hot. He was not warm in the first game. Goran Dragic has been pretty extraordinary from a big shot-hitting standpoint. Fantasy-wise, there's still a lot lacking in his game, which I don't think is changing anytime soon. But he's hitting big shots for that team, and he's playing big minutes. Kendrick Nunn has not played in the postseason. Interesting twist there. I thought this game, I watched the first quarter of this game, and I thought, okay, kind of the same feeling as game one between the Heat and the Pacers, where I watched the first quarter, and I thought, all right, Indy looks like they've got this thing figured out. They got Bam Adebayo into foul trouble early, and he's easily been the Heat's most important player on the floor because not only his defense, but his offense, the way he's able to move the basketball in their offensive sets, finding guys as they pop open because he can look over the defense. Miles Turner, to his credit, did have 5 blocks in yesterday's game, and Justin Holiday had 7 defensive stats, but the Pacers couldn't really slow down the Heat, particularly from downtown. Miami's a good three-point shooting team, and when their best three-point shooter hits 7, he only took 8 shots in that game, and he had 7 three-pointers. They become a tough beast. I think his other one was an and one, if I'm not mistaken. No, he had 3 free throws. Excuse me, it was 3 free throws. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I thought Indy would make this one competitive, and it was for stretches, and then every time it seems like the Heat just have a little bit more firepower as the game draws late. Malcolm Brogdon can't shoot the ball right now. His percentages are terrible. The Holidays have been very good, actually, for Indy. Turner, obviously good, but they just, they need Domantas Sabonis, and TJ Warren's running into a difficult matchup. So, I don't know. I mean, it's not like this series shifts to Indiana now or whatever. It's just another game at a neutral site tomorrow, which is pretty unusual. So it's hard for team. What adjustment is Indy going to make at this point? I think they sort of showed their hand. Maybe they'll surprise me. I don't know. But this one looks like the Heat might just be a little bit better. And it's sort of showing up in every game. Oklahoma City and Houston is an interesting one. I was so annoyed with myself that I didn't play the under in that one. I mean, we talked about how Houston was not going to shoot the ball as well as they did in game one. Yes, they had 19 threes again, but it took them so many tries to get there. Shot just 42% from the field. They're not sending people to the free throw line all that much. That first game was a totals anomaly. And what I mean by that is, I'll go back to Tuesday's results. Houston put up a $123, and the total went over by about 6 points. Total was set at 225. Houston scored 123. Oklahoma City scored 108 in that first game. Things to note, OKC shot 44%, had 25 free throws, and made a lot of them. They shot 84% at the free throw line. Not that many turnovers in the game. Not that many fouls, but OKC did sort of just enough. They made their free shots. Houston put up 123 because they shot the lights out. I mean, Houston's not a terrific shooting basketball team because a lot of their shots come from far away, but they had 23 pointers, only had 7 turnovers in the whole game. So if you actually look deeper at game 1, you could see the pace actually wasn't that high. The pace didn't really lend itself to a 231-point total. The pace lent itself more to what we saw in yesterday's game. That was a much closer result to what the actual tempo was telling us, which was 209. OKC shot 44%, Houston 42%. That was the difference. I mean, OKC did almost the exact same stuff in yesterday's game as they did on Tuesday. Almost exactly the same. They scored a few points less. I think they hit, what are they, about the same number of free throws, I guess. Just a couple fewer three-pointers. Pace was actually, believe it or not, even a tiny bit slower in yesterday's game. Turnovers were still relatively low. And then the big difference is Houston didn't shoot the ball as well. So this one didn't even come close. I mean, we're talking about like almost a 25-point swing, game versus game. 22, I think. What does that mean for Game 3? Well, in all likelihood, they'll make an adjustment on Game 3's total, which tomorrow, I think that's already out at 224. They've brought it way down, which is going to be some kind of midpoint here. If Houston shoots the ball if Oklahoma City does anything else offensively, besides what they were attempting to do yesterday, then this one gets pretty close to that number. Really annoyed with myself that I didn't play the under in that ball game yesterday. Houston, Oklahoma City has no counter for them right now. They might get hot and win a game, but Houston is the far superior team in this series, and it's not close. And here's the thing. Oklahoma City is a pick-and-roll offense. Pick-and-roll and ISO. Those are the only two things they really do because their big man is not a floor spacer, and he's not really an offensive talent. Kudos to Steven Adams. He's made an excellent career out of being a tough, big guy who can rebound and box out like a madman, but his limitations offensively, and frankly the limitations of anyone big on Oklahoma City offensively, means that they can't exploit the one thing that Houston should be considered a weakness on the Rockets side, and that's the fact that they switch everything. Houston's trying to take away the pick and roll. They switch everything because everyone on that team is a 6'4" wing. Their starting lineup, Eric Gordon, James Harden, Daniel House, Rob Covington, PJ Tucker. Covington was the center in that starting lineup yesterday. I mean, Steven Adams should be just chewing these people up, but that's not the way Oklahoma City's offense works. He's not a guy that they can just get it to somewhere near the rim and hope that things will happen. That's what needs to happen now, but every time they get him the ball, he's getting swarmed. Like a wave of mosquitoes coming at him, and he's not going to be able to hold on to it. So teams that have a viable scoring big man are teams that can give Houston a hard time. Because it's not going to matter if they switch everything because you're going to get a wing on the big man regardless. So it doesn't really mean that you need a pick and roll, right? Like let's take the Lakers for instance. If the Lakers if the Lakers get by the Blazers would actually be another example. They have Yusuf Nurkic, who's a good big man. If either of those teams advances and plays the Rockets in the next round, there's no point really in running a pick and roll because what's a Dame Nurk pick and roll gonna get you? Eric Gordon, does he end up on Nurkic and then Covington on Dame? Either way, Nurk has a massive size advantage. It doesn't change the outlook all that much. Or, Harden. Does Harden end up on one of those guys? Like, the big man's going to have to punish him. And they have to sort of keep it away from PJ Tucker because he's got the stoutness to deal with big, strong dudes anyway. Anthony Davis, yeah, he can punish those guys. Nurk, he could probably punish some of those guys. Again, I think Tucker would give them all issues. But Houston gets what they want there, which is a big man going one-on-one. Houston wants to limit your ability to move the ball fast. They just want to have someone on everybody at all times. No switching, no recovering, no hedging, no recovery. It's all switches. So there's always someone between the ball handler and the rim, and there has to be because they have no rim protection. Heaven forbid someone gets going downhill, there's not much they can do at that point. And with OKC, they don't have the pieces. They don't. Gallo is the closest thing they've got to a bigger guy that can get going downhill a little bit. But Chris Paul, he's going to run into big wings. Shea, Schroeder, all these guys, they're running into big wings. This is a bad matchup for Oklahoma City. It's a weird matchup for a lot of teams, but it's a particularly horrible matchup for OKC. There are a lot of teams out there that would stand a better chance against Houston's weirdo offense and defense. Almost every one of them, actually, come to think of it. Someone like a Porzingis could be trouble, although he doesn't really go around the bucket. Still, at 7'2" or whatever he's listed at, 7-8 inch height advantage, he'll just abuse them. Offensive rebounds, defensive rebounds, you name it. I mean, look at the rest of the teams in the playoffs and tell me, is any team more poorly equipped to deal with the Rockets than the Thunder? Interestingly, Brooklyn, because, they're playing a little bit hamstrung right now. Celtics are oddly not a great matchup because they don't have a big man that can do a whole lot. I guess they could throw in his Cantor in there and let him go to work on somebody in the post. Almost every team that I look at, the Pacers probably would be a bad matchup because Miles Turner, most of his stuff is face up at this point. Almost every other team I'm looking at is as a better avenue here than the Thunder. So they're in real trouble. Third game yesterday was Orlando and Milwaukee. The Bucks got out to a big lead. Orlando cut it down to, I believe, very briefly, they got it into single digits, but this one was pretty well in hand for Milwaukee from start to finish. This was more what we expected. Vooch was stellar again, but the rest of the Magic really couldn't get anything going, and the Bucks did mostly what they wanted to, despite somehow badly losing the free throw battle. DJ Augustine getting 10 free throws in this game. To me, Milwaukee played pretty well. The Magic did not play well, and still this was closer than it should have been because of the 31-16 free throw edge. And then finally, by the way, as you look towards the next one, you could actually see Milwaukee winning by more if the free throw number does even out. Magic probably shoot the ball a little bit better in their next ball game. And then finally, Damien Lillard dislocated finger late in the fourth quarter, so it didn't really have an impact on the game itself. Sounds like he's going to try to play through it. But listen, I said a lot of mean things about some of the Lakers in our segment with Brew. I thought JaVale McGee was basically just giving up minutes, and he was a lot better in that game last night. He was a lot better. 10 points, 8 boards, 3 assists. He crashed the glass, which was good. He contested shots at the rim. That was good. And he played better. I'm liking the Dwight Howard minutes off the bench. He's actually played really well in this series. He poses a size issue because he's one of the few centers out there who, just in strength and quickness, can actually keep up with Nurk. So the Lakers have the big men to really give other big men problems. You've seen it. Nurkic was just an unstoppable freight train through most of this bubble, and the Lakers have made him work awfully hard for what he's gotten in this series. Here's the thing. Lakers defense these first 2 games has been really, really good. And it was all season long. Weren't they number 2? They were either number 3. I think they were behind the Raptors and the Bucks. Lakers defense during the regular season was outstanding. Their offense during the regular season was actually pretty damn good also, but they couldn't really shoot. And then in game 1 of this series, we saw that come to a head in a big way. Not only could the Lakers not shoot, but they had completely forgotten. Just like there was zero shooting in that one. They got some shooting in this ball game, And another guy that I clobbered on the podcast with Brew here earlier in this show was KCP. And Kentavious Caldwell-Pope was very good in this game. He went 5 for 8, hit 4 threes in only 22 minutes, and probably would have seen more during garbage time. J.R. Smith hit 3 threes late. He's, I think, trying to make a case to be in there more often, but it took him 12 shots to get to that point. AD hit 3 from downtown. Anthony Davis bounced back nicely from an ugly game 1. The Lakers, there were no free throws in this game on either side. The refs just weren't calling anything. Lakers took 10 free throws. Blazers took 16 in the whole ball game. They were just letting them beat the hell out of each other. Danny Green still hasn't even warmed up at all. And, I thought the Blazers were going to win this game. Truly, I thought the Lakers had completely fallen apart in terms of they were in their own head. But someone went out there and hit a three-pointer. I think it was KCP, actually, that hit the first one of the game. And it sort of gave everybody a deep sigh. It's like, oh, okay. They do go in every once in a while. Markieff Morris was really bad from downtown. I watched him miss a few in a row. Caruso's got to find a way to knock down wide open shots because they're completely abandoning him at this point. His defense was excellent again, which you're always going to get out of him, and that's really helpful against a Blazers team with 2 very good guards. But the Lakers are figuring this thing out. In fact, as I look at the Lakers, and we've talked about this before on the podcast, there's this weird round-robin thing where each team seemingly has an advantage against another team, where the Lakers have an edge at center over the Clippers, but the Clippers have an edge on the wing. If you put the Bucks in there, they have 2 really good kind of wing front courty players in Middleton and Giannis. The Raptors are just really good all the way across the board. They, not quite the superstar power. There's some really interesting teams at the top. But I don't want to just look at this and say Lakers and Clippers are automatically getting by. They have much tougher first-round matchups than the Bucks and the Raptors do. Where with Milwaukee, it looked like they were figuring it out. Raptors have looked fine so far. The Blazers are not going anywhere. I wonder what this dislocated finger is actually going to mean for Damian Lillard. But first of all, Dame took some really long three-pointers in this one, and he missed them. Hence the 40% thing. They don't all go in. Melo was horrible. McCollum was horrible. The Lakers played angry in that game last night. They were angry, and they were guarding everyone. Every single shot was contested. I mean, Portland's number of open looks was crushingly low in this ball game. So curious to see if the Lakers have that same effort level in the next ball game. But you saw in this one a decent Lakers performance, and it annihilated a Blazers team that looked like they were one of the best teams in the bubble. I don't know. I mean, Brew mentioned it earlier in the show. I think the Lakers are actually a bit underrated among the pundits right now. And I'm a pretty pragmatic Laker fan. But if they are even adequate from three-point land, they're a pretty mean team. Clippers are a pretty mean team, too. We'll see if they actually have some focus in their next one. And that was what happened on Thursday night. Make sure to check out our buddies over at Manscaped.com and the brand new Lawnmower 3.0 with built-in LED technology, waterproof. You can do it in the shower. Clean yourself up, you disgusting louts. Use the promo code HoopBall20, HoopBall20, all one word, to get 20% off and free shipping on your Manscaped.com order. Do it now. It's a wonderful partner for us. Really great reps over there. They've just been super easy to work with, and their product is outstanding. So go get one. If you've been thinking about it, do it now. Just go grab it up. We all need some grooming in the era of the COVID. So take all those hairs and send them into the sky. Manscaped.com is the website. Promo code, once again, is HoopBall20. There's no hyphen, by the way, in our promo codes. HoopBall20 on Manscaped and HoopBall on MyBookie.ag. The weekend is here. We've broken down the Friday card. I'll give you quickly some thoughts on the Saturday action. Milwaukee favored by 12 over the Magic. Technically, this is now a road game for the Bucks, but who cares at this point? The total of 226 is probably accurate. I think you see both those teams score a little better in their next game. Although I've been telling you guys, if you just start riding unders as playoff series go along, there are massive, massive pockets of value. I believe all 4 games went under on Thursday night. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, all 4. Remember I said just start betting unders? Once teams start to figure each other out, things slow down. Everybody's got a counter for everything else. But, of course, you're going to start to see the numbers come down now. So the question is, how far is too far? Miami favored by 5 over Indiana. That's probably an accurate line based on what we've seen so far. A total of 214. This is a series that might actually start hitting some overs at some point. If Indy tries to loosen things up, that might be their best way, because in the half court, Miami's killing them. Houston by 3.5 over Oklahoma City, total of 224. I believe these numbers are good. And the Lakers by 7, total of 225. At some point, there's going to be a game where both teams shoot the ball really well in that series, and it might be Game 3. So in looking at this card for Saturday, I think if you think Oklahoma City's going to get a game, this would probably be the one. But with neutral site, it's a little weird. Normally you'd grab these teams coming home in their Game 3 and expect them to kind of just get one just to get on the board, but it's not quite that same way. Technically, Miami was the road team in those first 2 games, and they won them, but nothing changes. I think we may have missed some of our window here to just flat bet unders, but I do think that some of them are still going to be popping up. Or they're going to be a little closer to the number, though. They're bringing the lines down. That's about it for our show. No real big news out of the basketball world right now. Just games start soon, so the fun begins anew. So enjoy. Have a great weekend, everybody. This will be back. Show will be back with you on Monday. We'll be talking to Adam King on our Monday show. We'll be actually recording that podcast a little bit later on today. So we'll be talking fantasy, if you can believe that. I know. Crazy, right? Big thanks to Aaron Bruski once again. He's at Aaron Bruski on Twitter. I am at Dan Besbris, DanBesbris. Hit me up if you want to join the madness over here, really building out our betting unit and the sales unit. Those are 2 big ones right now. So hit me up at Dan Besbris on Twitter or email teamhoopball@hoop-ball.com. Drop a 5-star review on the pod. Have a great weekend. We will talk to you on Monday. So long, everybody.
This has been a Hoop Ball presentation.